In Once a Thief, a trio of childhood friends get caught up in a fine art heist with tragic consequences, pushing their allegiances and loyalties to the absolute limit. As serious as that sounds, this one has the lightest tone of all the John Woo movies we've reviewed so far. Welcome everyone to the Collector's Cut. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
Now for the answer to the riddle of yesterday, what room has no walls? A mushroom.
This is a movie podcast, and we are in John Woo season. We are on our penultimate episode of John Woo season, and we are looking today at 1991's Once a Thief. So we'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers, and if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, hit the like button, helps out a bunch if you do, and you can give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app, and you can support the show over at Patreon and get some bonuses, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So yeah, this is a bit of a change of pace after the kind of the more relentless sort of hard action movies that we've had over the last several episodes. This one's a bit lighter, a bit more hijinksy. Still a little bit of that John Woo flair in some of the action scenes for sure, but there's, you know, some other comedic elements. But we do have Chow Yun-fat here. We also have Leslie Chung, who was also in Better Tomorrow 1 and 2. He played Kit in those movies. So, you know, we got a couple of familiar faces. It still feels like this like group of filmmakers getting back together to do something, but they're doing something a bit lighter, a bit different from the previous stuff. So, we'll get into that. But it is effectively a heist movie of sorts, with a trio of characters who rob things like paintings and sometimes other stuff, but mainly that's the one we focus on in the movie is the paintings. So, and you know, there's a friendship, maybe a bit of a love triangle, and all sorts of stuff. So we'll get into it. But I suspect you didn't know much about this one before we watched it.
No. I think that's a very safe assumption to make, is I had no idea what this was going into it, to the point where I was expecting, like you said, the same sort of relentless action, like it's marked as a comedy, but still has like the John Woo like style to it. And there is some John Woo style in here, but it is something else entirely.
Yeah, to be fair, I didn't really know much about it going in either. The impression I got from the poster and the description and whatnot, it seems like it's going to be lighter, but I didn't know how much lighter it was going to be. And it certainly is. It has its moments of hijinks and kind of more kind of traditional comedy, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's relentlessly constant either. It's more like specific scenes have a lot of it sprinkled in, but then there's like stretches where it's just more kind of like the characters are definitely kind of light in making like jokes and wisecracks, but it's not like full on comedy, I would say, for stretches. But then there'll be like a part of physical comedy where it's like, oh no, we're doing a lot of comedy in this scene all of a sudden. So
right, very slapstick stuff.
So yeah, but we'll get into it, like I said. So starting off simply, David, what did you think of Once a Thief?
I think there are elements of this movie that I really like, but I gotta say my overall is kind of just disappointed. Like I don't really know specifically what to point to quite yet. I'm still kind of just mulling over exactly what it was, but it just felt to me like one thing that John Woo that I've been surprised about over top of the action is how tight the scripts are and how much it feels like all of these arcs are very well thought out, very clearly trying to make a point of like change and all that. And I know this is a comedy, but the script just felt so loose. It felt so not up to par with the previous stuff. There were sections where I was confused about like what we were doing, who we were talking about at different points. I was concerned about like different relationship stuff. And eventually I think I got a grip on everything, but I never really had that problem with previous movies. I think that it always had the ability to, despite the language barrier, clearly get across exactly what it was saying and exactly how it was trying to do this. And this one, I don't know, something in it was just missing. There are moments of comedy I really like. There are moments of action that I really like, but the whole of the movie I think is just kind of a mid-grade sort of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit more mixed than the other films. I think you're probably right that the script's not as tight and the character arcs are not as well defined, and it's a bit more wishy-washy with that stuff. I do think these set piece scenes, which is like one main heist scene, this action scene here, that action scene there, I think those all stand out as being really good. And whenever we get into that stuff, I tended to have a really good like 5 to 10 minutes of just enjoying the the visual storytelling, the choreography, all that kind of stuff. The characters have their moments here or there, but there's definitely some weird kind of elements to the progression and how stuff plays out. I think the biggest sin for me in this movie, actually, and I won't get too into it because, you know, by the way, get spoilers or anything, but, you know, it's a trio of characters, right? We've got Chow and Fat, we got Leslie Chung, and we have Red Bean, or, I mean, technically her real name is Cherie, but everyone calls her Red Bean. And she is like a part of the trio, and she's presented that way in the opening, like, sort of extended prologue of the movie. And then for the rest of the film, all of a sudden, it kind of feels like it's just about the two guys, and she becomes just kind of the woman who's waiting and doesn't want to be let down, and becomes just kind of a plot device almost. And it felt a little bit of a shame, given that this started off as a trio of characters, but kind of falled into kind of some of the same tropes. I don't want to say misogynistic tropes necessarily, but just not using the character in any way as a character.
Damsel in distress sort of stuff, like where it just reduces her to the most basic common.
Yeah, I mean, she's never technically a damsel, but like, but along those lines, where it's like she is just the woman who's waiting for the man to come home, kind of thing, and that's effectively all she really becomes. And I found that quite disappointing. Now, I will say this though. Every so often, it does have a moment, like a stroke of brilliance. And one of the best moments in cinematic history might happen in the third act of this movie. Now, I laughed so hard when one thing happened, and I can't even allude to it because it would be spoiler city if I did. But I loved it. I loved it, and I'm going to sing its praises when the time comes.
There's so many comedic, like the third act, I think goes balls to the wall with comedic moments. So I'm not sure which one would have put you over.
Oh, like one notably got me laughing out loud for an extended period. And I was amused by other stuff. I was generally enjoying my time with the hijinks, but there was one that got me.
You know what? Since you're saying not spoilers, I know exactly the moment. I know exactly what it is. Okay. Gotcha.
It's like the audacity. I appreciate the balls on you movie to do this.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It got me too. That's honestly, that point in the movie is kind of where like I was a little bit down. I was like, all right, how much longer do I have in this movie? But the moment that happens where I sat up and I was like, oh, we still have new things to offer. Okay.
Oh yeah, from then until the end, it's pretty much just a fun time at the end. Because at that point, it's like, okay, whatever like plot like struggles we've had, or like getting to that next fun part, like that's all over, because now we're just in the fun part till the end pretty much, barring a little epilogue or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I still think it's worth the watch. I still think it's pretty easy to consume, and it's entertaining generally speaking. The cast are relatively likable most of the time. There's some fun moments throughout, but it's definitely more of a mixed bag. I think for me it probably comes down to being like, you know, like I might slightly prefer it over Hero Shed No Tears, but it's definitely weaker than every other John Woo movie we've done this season.
See, I was a little bit higher on Hero Shed No Tears than you are, so I think this might be at the bottom. But
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, again, I want to point out there are highs to this movie. There are moments that I was getting a laugh. I was engrossed in the action. I think it's just the overall product I had a little bit of an issue with.
I mean, that is completely fair. I just think that at least this still... it doesn't necessarily hit everything it needs to hit. It does have characters. It does have plot. And Hero Shed No Tears had no plot. Right. Like, you know, it had the basic setup, and then it was just kind of like, okay, we're wandering from location to location, and gunfights will happen until runtime is over. Yeah, and, you know, that's fair. Yeah, this has a bit more going for it than that. So... but definitely mixed in a lot of ways with some of the other things that it's doing, and like it kind of just feels like a palate cleanser for John Woo, where it's like, oh, I want to make something silly and fun before I do another like proper John Woo movie. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, no, it feels like one of those things that's just on his bucket list. He's just like, all right, I've made my name, I've got my own production stuff going on. I'm gonna make my comedy. I'm gonna go ahead and just knock that one out real quick, and then he can go off and do Mission Impossible 2 as much as he wants.
Going to do my comedy caper. Hey, well, he's not sinking to that next. Come on now. We've got Hard Boiled next, arguably his most celebrated movie.
That's fair.
Now, will we think it's his best movie of the season when we watch it? That's another question. We'll find out next week. But
I don't know.
For now, we'll dive into Hero Shed No Tear. Sorry, no, we did that already. It's because we're just talking about it. We're talking about Once a Thief. So, yeah, I mean, the main trio of actors are good. I wish the actress obviously had a bit more to do past a certain point, which is a bit complaint I've had about a few of these movies, but especially in this one, because it felt like it was like, oh, she's one of the trio of leads, and then all of a sudden, no, we're back to it being she's just the Jackie of this movie, and that's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, they try to set it up a little bit towards the beginning where it's just like she's the one who's maybe a bit more hesitant on continuing to do these jobs and stuff like that. But
it's totally fine for her character to be the one who wants this to end and be like, no, I want us to stop being criminals and actually start building a life and so on.
Right. It's fine for like the point of the character in the movie, but it does take away, like, why did it have to be the girl? You know, why? It just feels like it's almost intentionally put there of like, well, she's not going to be able to do the gunfights, you know? Yeah,
she's not going to be around for all the cool scenes later, and that sucks.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That just sucks. So, there's that. We do have some different locations here. We spend like half the movie in France, so it's a very different kind of visual direction.
I kind of wanted to just check in on the dubbed version of this movie because you have the French, you have the Cantonese, but you then also have occasionally, like, they'll talk to people in English as well. And so at a certain point, I'm like, how does this translate when everything's in English? Like, do we have a French thing? Do we have, like, different languages?
Sure. Well, what's funny is this is the first movie this season, because I own all these on Apple. And this is the first one that didn't have an English dub as an option. Now, I've always watched the Cantonese version, but they've all had the option of switching to the English track if I want to. This one did not. So I'm sure there is an English dub somewhere, but the current release does not have one. That was...
Sorry, my computer just completely died for a second there.
That was the end of a sentence. I'm like, why isn't David talking? Okay.
Yeah, no, I was watching this on Tubi, and it always is giving me the option of like original or dubbed, and I just ignore the dubs. But for some reason, it's just there was one scene in particular where within 2 minutes they went from Cantonese to French to English a couple of times, and I was like, what is this scene?
Well, it makes some sense, though, because English is a second language that a lot of people who don't speak English learn. So it's like a bridging language where, so you've got a Cantonese-speaking person and a French-speaking person. The chances of them speaking the other's language are very slim, but there's a chance they'll both speak English.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I want to bring up, and this is kind of in line with the Cantonese, the fact that it is in a foreign language here. Mm-hmm. The fact that one of the characters is named, at least nicknamed, Red Bean, and
that's the girl.
And the other one is Red Bean Pudding.
Yes, that's true. In fact,
maybe they sound different in Cantonese. Maybe there's like a completely different like thing going on with it. But as I'm reading subtitles and trying to keep this in track in my mind, it is so frustrating to try to keep that straight.
It's a weird pair of nicknames. Not even even in the movie context. It'd be really weird as a pair of nicknames just in life to have like two people in the same circle. One's called Red Bean, the other one's called... Like, it would be different if, like, one was Red Bean and one was Green Bean. Because at least, like, okay, I can see, like, they're supposed to relate to each other, but they've got a different colour, whatever. But this is, like, an extra word at the end of the nickname, so it's clunky, for sure.
It's the equivalent of having two Big Tonys, but one of the Big Tonys is actually, like, Big Tony Plus. It's like, what are we doing?
Is a streaming service?
Yeah, I guess.
I got used to it pretty quickly once I realised, but it was confusing the first time they said red bean pudding, because I was like, wait, you're Red Bean. Oh, wait, no, Chow in fact's Red Bean Pudding. Okay.
Well, that was my initial thing, is I thought Red Bean Pudding was like the full Christian name, and then Red Bean was just the shortening. It was the nickname. And that took me a while to realize, oh no, we've got two different people here.
Yes. So there's a bit of confusion there for sure. But you know, we get a lot of stuff in France. We get some stuff back in Hong Kong in the second half of the movie. Feels like they wanted to make use of those locations. We see shots next to Notre Dame, a little montage of shots of Paris, the Eiffel Tower, and so on. So it's got the production value there. Like John Woo's clearly getting a little bit more cred here, where he's like, "Hey, I want to spend some time in France. Can we make half this movie in France? Let's go do that."
God, I am so. The word is escaping me at the moment. I guess just cynical of movies that are set in like very pictorial, like vacation places, where ever since like the whole Adam Sandler just makes movies in vacation spots, I view that for all of Hollywood now. Where it's like, did you have to film in Paris?
I think that is a very cynical take. There's plenty of reasons why you might want to shoot scenes or your movie entirely in Paris. And to be fair, Paris is known for having a lot of art galleries and famous art, so
no, it makes sense for the sake of the movie. Like, I get it, and it's the intrusive thought that I try to push away, but it is there.
Yeah. I think the difference is that those Adam Sandler movies could literally be in any like location that's nice, and it just happens to be the one they've picked.
Right.
Whereas, you could pick some different cities if you wanted to, but I think it's more just about, hey, this will contrast really nicely with how Hong Kong looks later on, because Hong Kong looks like this city with all the lights and stuff, and Paris has got all these old kind of stone structures and castles and cathedrals and whatnot.
Paris, otherwise known as the City of Lights, does not have all those lights.
You know what I mean? I'm talking about neon lights, and colored lights and stuff like that. But anywho, there's some chase sequences, there's some vehicle stuff in here, which is inventive at places. There's some antics with physical comedy, and I think it's some elements are a bit predictable as far as like, oh, this is clearly going to be a villain, this is clearly going to be this or whatever, but nothing that really matters that much, because I don't think the movie's trying to hide those things. It's not like it's trying to be like, hey, what a twist that this is going to be the bad guy. So
no, it's very upfront about that sort of stuff. I mean, if they wanted to do a twist, I'm sure they could have, and it wouldn't have been notable. Like, it wouldn't have been a thing that we would have been saying, oh, this was an out of nowhere twist, but it was very clear of what it's trying to be up front. One thing I do want to point out, and maybe this was just me, maybe I'm just coming into this at a weird place. I felt like whenever we saw their childhood stuff and like how they grew up and whatever else, without getting too deep into like spoiler, it felt to me like this was very sibling coded. Like, this is very much of a found family that grew up together and they were doing their own things, which made it really weird when we got into the love triangle stuff later on.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really occur to me too much. I guess I assumed that was like the youngest they spent together was the ages we see them in the flashbacks. So, like, like they're already almost at the age where they're going to start thinking about like, girls and boys and whatever. So maybe it's not that weird. But I mean, I don't know. They've got an unbreakable bond where they've had to survive together. Trauma, leads to shared.
No, I get that.
Shared experiences, camaraderie, possibly love and affection and attachment and dependence, you might even say. So,
no, I mean, that was something that we mentioned in the last movie, was the idea of like how deep the brotherhood aspect ran on things, and John Woo does a very good job with that. I second that here. It's not done as well. I think it was like perfect in the previous movie. Here it does a good job of showing these three will always be there for each other. They're always sticking each other's necks out, and they've got a kind of bond that is difficult to just make happen.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, I think I don't really have like super big complaints with the story or anything like that. It's just never like hard hitting. It's never like getting that creative from a plot perspective where I'm like, oh, this is really inventive, like the way it's written, or it's hitting me hard with things. Not that it should, because it's a comedy, but like, compared to the last movie, Bullet in the Head, where it was like really going for the drama of like things breaking down and the things that characters are being forced to do around each other or to each other or whatever. It just this never had anything quite like that. There was maybe just a slight bit of, oh, is there a little bit of jealousy here because of how the romance stuff has played out a little bit since the last couple of scenes, but that was pretty much it. And even
then, it's so light. Like, the movie barely focuses on that at all.
Yeah. To To the point where, like, the epilogue stuff at the end, which again, obviously I'm not going to say what any of it is, but the tone of that and, like, kind of, like, what exactly it's sort of, like, saying about, like, how this ends up is so kind of, like, it feels like they just wanted to do something that made sense for the movie as an ending of a movie, but not something that actually makes that much sense if you think about it in real world context all that much. But we'll talk about that in spoilers properly.
Yeah. Only other thing to add in from my side of things is I think in the back half I noticed it less. There were a few moments, but the musical choices, especially in like the first little set piece bit of the movie, I could not get behind. I thought they were absolutely horrible choices because it felt to me like one of those like background songs that loop when you're playing like a crappy JRPG game, where it's like, oh yeah, we just got like this looping thing that's meant to be ignored and it's completely non-hostile, but it was just not fitting the tone of the movie at all for me.
I never really had a negative reaction to any of the music. I actually think there's several tracks that stuck out as being quite bold choices, where there's like a really good like thumping bass line or something like that, or I think there's like right at the very start when the opening titles are playing, there's like kind of some weird clarinet thing going on over like a low bass like underneath it, and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. Honestly, my comment with the music is less about anything not being suitable, because especially at the start, because I'm like, what tone are you going for? I'm not even sure yet, but it's more just how wildly varied it was. Like nothing came back again as like a recurring like element or theme. Like it felt like every set piece or every part of the movie had new music that felt completely different to the music in the previous sections, so there was never like a through line for me. So my critique would just be that it felt like there was no identity to it. It was just kind of like all over the place. I think several of the tracks were good on their own, but they were just, you know, all different types of music all over the place, but some of them were good on their own.
That's fine. I mean, for me, they were good enough that I didn't notice them. Like it wasn't something that stood out for me, but it wasn't bad. But the first bit of the movie had just this weird sort of soundtrack to it I really couldn't get behind. And then, without spoiling anything, there's a moment during, well, actually there's two moments where they bring up just classical music. Like a very a very standard like operatic sort of piece starts playing, orchestral stuff, and both of those times I felt like it maybe got a bit too cartoony. It may have just crossed that threshold.
They were cartoony comedy moments for sure. Like it was meant to be a wink wink to the camera kind of thing, but you know.
Yeah, no, I get it, but I feel like they just took one step too far. You know, there's that moment where you can cross that threshold, and I think they might have.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it worked for me, but I get the intent. Like, it didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like, no, we know what we're doing by picking this, but, you know, I get it. Like, it's not like those are my favorite moments by any stretch. So, I think we're ready to jump into spoilers then for Once a Thief. So you have been warned. We're going to go through spoilers from here on out. Let's get into it. The movie opens with kind of the casing of like their next kind of thing. So they're all separate, and like Chow and Fat's going through the art gallery, kind of scouting it out and testing things. Red Bean, and this is this actress's last movie actually. I was looking like the obviously the main two I knew, but I looked her up and I was like, oh, this was her last film before she kind of. And I was like, oh, did she die young or something? And she didn't. She's been doing like environmental work and stuff for the last like 30 years. So power to her. But she
I don't know why she picked this one as her last.
I mean, she may not have known it was her last. She may have decided afterwards to quit.
Oh well, yeah. I'm just saying, like, it's I don't know what happened in her life that would have shaken that up.
But she's like kind of marking one of the crates. She kind of like intentionally breaks a heel next to them loading a truck full of art, gallery paintings and stuff. And she sprays perfume in the corner. Although notably her dog pisses on it afterwards, which leads to a laugh later when Chung and Fat's try to smell, and he takes a big whiff of the box. And he's not expecting the strong smell of piss, and he reacts appropriately, as you might. Yeah. But actually, the thing that stuck out to me about this, because it's all building up to like this is going to be an on the road thing where the truck's in transit, and like they're driving in a car behind Chow and Fat and Red Bean, and our other guy James is on a motorbike, and it's all going to be this thing to get into the truck while it's moving and steal the painting without them hopefully not even realizing, or at the very least they realize it too late. The thing that got me about this was I actually didn't know at this point that they were all working together. And I actually thought the comedy like sort of start of the movie was going to be that both James and Chow Yun-fat were trying to steal the same painting, and they were going to stumble into each other on the truck. Because James is slid under the truck on a motorbike, which is a cool little moment actually, and he's like sort of dangling from underneath the truck, and he's cutting a hole in the floor, and Chow Yun-fat's inside, like, you know, taking off the crate and all that. And I'm like, oh, there's going to be like a hijinks moment here of like, wait, what you did? Like, who are you? And like, you know, this is going to be the start of a beautiful friendship. And instead, no, he just passes the painting down to him through the hole, and I'm like, oh, they're working together already. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that was I was in the exact same boat as soon as it was doing all this, and I feel it's intentional. It's meant to set up this expectation of, oh, two rival thieves trying to steal the same painting at the same time. But yeah, it was the weirdness where we had an earlier scene of Chow Yun-fat and Red Bean meeting up, so we know those two are on a team, but James is kept completely separate. And all I could think during the thing is, as I'm assuming James is his own thief, is he's got this little handsaw, he's got this little power tool to cut through the floor of the truck, and I'm like, how are you gonna crawl through that? And when they show he's only cutting like a 3-inch hole, I'm like, what's your plan here, guy? This doesn't make any sense. And then when it all pans out, I'm like, oh, okay. I get it now.
I know what his plan was. He was going to make the most extreme sport version of a glory hole the world's ever seen.
More power to him, man.
You got to dangle under the truck like you're Keanu Reeves in Speed. But you'll feel great while you're doing it.
Yep. Maybe, I don't know, pick a truck with someone in the back, like, instead of just a random box truck.
Don't deconstruct the joke. It was a fine joke.
It was.
So, anyway, there's a whole bit end of this is that Chow Yun-fat's up on top of the roof of the truck, and he's like got a parachute, and the truck driver just opens fire once he notices he's up there, and I'm like, really, shoot to kill immediately? You're going to try and like, apprehend him, but all right.
I appreciate the idea that they think that he has a painting, like the idea that he is currently the one who has it, so they need to shoot him for it. And that's where James, the last thing he does before he disconnects from underneath is cut the truck's brakes,
so they can't
stop the truck and be able to let them to escape. So it's a very well thought out sequence. I think it's all very solid, and it gets the camaraderie between these three very quickly. Yeah, but if the truck driver, or I'll say the driver technically is in the passenger side, but you know, if the guard thinks that Chow Yun-fat has the painting, surely firing him with a shotgun is just putting the painting at risk. Absolutely, no doubt. Like, this should be handled any other way, but also, how are they going to stop them, you know? I mean,
hit the brakes. I know they can't, but that should be their first move.
Yeah, probably.
Make him tumble off the roof and grab him. I don't know. It felt like gunfire happened immediately, but it's a movie, so whatever. I'll roll with it.
There's like, I would say 3 or 4 points of this movie where a character explicitly says like, "Oh, we have to protect the painting," or like, "Oh, like don't like we got to get that back," and then they put it in harm's way by their own hand. Like, yes. It keeps happening. I have to assume at a certain point it's a comedy bit.
Anyway, I started blasting.
Yes. For the 5th time now.
Yes. So there's a bit of comedy here where Chow Yun-fat's on the parachute, and he's like trying to land in the back of the convertible car that they're now both in, and there's a bit of hijinks of him trying to land, and they drive off without him when he has to stop to pee, and it's all, I'll kill you too, yeah. And that's kind of your introduction, and we get introduced to who we're going to call the Godfather character, who is a policeman who's come to France to consult because these robberies are happening. And I got really confused at first because it fades to a flashback that he's not in, and it didn't make any sense why this flashback was happening to him. And then you get the second flashback and you realize it's kind of a lead into how he comes into their lives in the story.
Yeah.
But it was a weird start to the flashbacks.
I just thought that like maybe they were trying to say that the guy in the first flash, because it's a flashback to when the three were young, they were being raised by a crime boss who we'll get to in a second.
Who they call Dad. They just call him Dad, so that's what we'll call him.
They just call him Dad. They're all orphans, by the way. I don't know if we mentioned that, but like all of them are orphaned on their own, and they were brought together under this guy. However, I thought the idea of it was, they just cast this guy as the younger version of this detective, and he doesn't look a damn thing like him, but who am I to judge, you know?
No. So, the dad's like teaching him how to pick pockets, and he's very strict, and he canes them if they get it wrong, and so on, to the point where he's saying, hey, like, you know, Red Bean, you're getting no dinner because you're crying too much because you're a stupid little girl. And the other two boys, to show their bond kind of forming, they're stealing food at the dinner table so she can definitely have something to eat. And it's like, okay, that's kind of sweet. It's showing they care about each other, but it's also showing that they're getting good at stealing, which is also a neat little detail.
They're literally stealing right in front of a guy who's teaching them how to steal. Like, they're showing their skills.
But the second flashback, which comes quite quickly, because we cut back to the detective for a minute, Billy, we cut to another flashback, which is basically he catches them stealing from like a small shop. They're stealing some bread, a small bakery.
Yeah. We get to see one of their early cons where like Red Bean pretends to be a beggar. James takes the bread off of a shelf and tosses it over to Chow Yun-fat. And that's all just a thing. But then as the detective catches them, he rounds a corner and we see that I thought it was a ploy, but they play it off as if it was totally realistic. They come around to this old woman and they're like, "It's okay, Grandma. You can take this bread. Everything's okay." And the detective's like, "All right, you're some good kids underneath it all. I'll take you under my wing and show you the right way to live."
Yeah, and he takes them out to dinner. He's like, "Hey, if you got troubles, come to me. Don't steal. Here's some money to get some clothes because winter's coming in." And he kind of like becomes their second father figure. So they have dueling father figures: a criminal who's been teaching them how to steal, and a cop with a heart of gold who's trying to teach them the right ways and looks out for them.
And like, I appreciate the idea that they have these dual mentor figures, but I also wish that the characters might have had a little bit more of a struggle with like the life that they're leading, you know? Like the idea that maybe you have one who's totally on the side of we shouldn't steal anymore, one that's on the side of no, I love stealing, and then one that's caught in the middle. But instead it's two of them are like, let's steal everything we can. And then Red Bean's like, I don't know, I'm a little iffy about it. And so it seems like the Godfather had no input on their lives whatsoever.
Well, I think he did in the sense that they're very good, and you know, like at one point later, James like puts himself in harm's way to rescue a kid during a gunfight. So it's like they're good people. But yeah, but it's all played for hijinks. It's all like, we won't steal as they're they feel like they're teenagers getting away with looking at porn. Like that's the tone of which those scenes later on, because they still like him. He's still like their father figure. He still shows up to look out for them. But he's like, hey, you guys better not be stealing again. No, we wouldn't do that. Look at blueprints.
It's literally, it's quite literally just the scene of like they have their hand in the cookie jar.
Yes.
He turns the corner and says, "Are you stealing those cookies?" And they make up some wild, crazy, wacky excuses to, "No, we were testing the integrity of the jar." Like it's something like that.
No, we were collecting cookies to give to children who have nothing to have on Christmas. This is all for charity.
Why are you against children without cookies and probably also have cancer?
So Bizarre sets up all that stuff, and they get kind of we see them kind of have a nice day of like driving around and having dinner, and it establishes that there is some kind of romantic element between Chow Yun-fat's character and Red Bean, who, and you know, the first scene we have of them before the heist on the road even happens is that she's looking up at the Notre Dame and being like, hey, I always dreamed of getting married there. Like she's dropping hints. She's like, I want to get married there. If only some loser would finally propose, I would maybe have my big wedding, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. So it sets up that, but it also shows that, you know, they're very like jokesters with each other, and they do little pranks, and they do a prank on her, or I should say Chow Yun-fat does a prank on her. She gets a birthday cake, and when she goes to blow out the candle, it kicks up a bunch of, I don't know, flour or something into her face.
Anthrax.
I don't think it was anthrax. Just a sneaking suspicion. And she gets mad, and James is like, hey, go and apologize and, like, you know, make it up to her. Like, you know, she cares about what you think, and she's upset. So it's kind of setting up that James maybe has a bit of a crush, but he's accepted that those two are kind of a thing, and he's not getting in the way of it.
But also during the apology thing, he's like singing some sort of romantic little song to her and is like trying to suck up to her. And then James fires off a little BB gun that causes her to kick her leg and kick him into the pool.
Yes.
So there is still him interfering to an extent, just a little bit of like, well, maybe I won't make this happen too easy.
It's playful, you know, it's not like outright sabotage or anything, but yeah, there's definitely a little bit of that there. But the whole thing is after we get a little bit of this, like just sort of getting to know them, is that they're going to maybe sell this painting they've stole to this villain in France. I think they say it's in Italian, but they go to him. So just to make things more
if they
confusing.
were speaking Italian too, I would have lost my mind.
But they go to him and he's like, "Hey, I've got this other painting. I want to get stolen, right? This great painting. The rumors is that it's haunted because of its past, blah blah." And he's talking about how it's in this castle and no one's ever seen it, or there's, it's not open to the public or anything like that. And my favorite part of this scene is that we've established at this point that Red Bean wants them all to get out of this life of crime. So and because she's the one who translates to and from English, she just straight up starts lying about what everyone's saying to get what she wants. Because the guy's like, "Oh, I want you to steal this. I'll pay you $5 million." And she's like, "He's offering $2 million." Because for a split second I thought, wait, is she trying to pocket the other three for herself? And then I realized, no, she's just lowballing it so it's less tempting. But they're like, "Oh, this sounds like fun." And then she turns back and goes, "No, they're politely declining." They don't want to do it.
Exactly. They're just like, "We cursed painting $2 million. Hell yeah!" And she has to turn back to them and be like, "No, it's not. It's not gonna." And then she's like, "Oh, it's how about this?" And then she turns around and says, "Are you guys?" She wants to know if you guys are sure, like if that's the thing. And he's like, they just give a thumbs up and all that. And he's like, "All right, if you say so." Yeah,
like one of the few words they know in English is "yeah," and they're like, "Yeah." Right. Like they're gonna know about it. But the whole idea here is that it's a tantalizing, like, hey, this is something that's supposedly difficult to steal and you'd be a famous criminal if you ever pull it off, and that, and he knows that he's tempted them despite what she said, because when they leave, they've ripped the page out of the book that he was showing them so they know what they're looking for. And he's like, aha. And it's very clear from this second this guy is going to try and kill them so that he can just get the painting for free, because he's like, aha, they took the bait and my evil plan.
I'm not sure that that's what was coming through. So, I mean, the plot of the movie shows it otherwise, but as soon as they walk out the door, he notices the painting is missing, and he gets a call from someone and basically says, "Hey, yeah, they took the bait." And we get to see on the other side is the father, the crime boss character. So it's not so much a thing of as cut and dry as we're going to kill them and get the painting for free. We find out the whole plan later on, but I think even here it's meant to be a bit more mysterious.
He's definitely villainous, though. He's definitely going to betray them.
Oh, yeah. This is all super evil, no doubt.
It's a setup, is the point I was getting at.
Yes.
So she's not very happy that they're going to do it, but James goes off to do it on his own, but Chow and Fat's like, "I can't let him do it on his own. He's going to get into trouble without me." So he goes off to catch up with them. So we see James on his own, like using is that like a funny bit here where he fires the grapple gun up and it just bonks a guard on the head.
That was the first bit of like pure comedy in this movie that I thought like, oh, okay, we're hitting like Naked Gun levels. We're hitting a thing of like just throw away, blink and you'll miss a joke, and it's just done. Yeah,
but he climbs in, does some sneaking about, some ducking, rolling and whatnot, and he gets to like this hallway or whatever, and this is when Chow and Fat kind of sneaks up behind him, and it's like, "Hey, I'm here, you loser. We're going to do this together." And it's a good thing he came, because this next entire section is going to involve them doing some flying Grayson's like circus act to try and get to the painting, because they can't step on the floor in the room.
Yeah, there's a lot of electricity in this movie as the primary threat, but here exactly, it's electrified floors, and they have to launch up Chow Yun Fat onto a chandelier, have him dangle down from his legs to then allow for like a swinging motion across the floor so he can grab the painting and then dismount and do like a backflip back up again.
Well, not just him. James has to jump up and grab onto him.
That's what I meant by him, sorry.
It's both of them, which is why I was thinking a circus act specifically, because it was very much how they grab each other when they jump and catch. And yeah, there's all this swinging. Although this is after we also get another really, really old school comedy bit, which is the spinning secret door that kicks them out into the other side and they get confused.
Yeah. God, it's kind of a trend nowadays on like TikTok and YouTube Shorts and whatever else to use like old school Hanna-Barbera sound effects. And I just imagined hearing so many of them during this sequence of like the door spinning around and the backflips and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fun sequence, though. Like, I was into the actual heist part itself. And then the bit they follow up with is they have to escape out through this room that's got red lasers. And according to the logic of this movie, you can see the lasers if you look through a glass of whiskey or wine, like a glass of booze. And they can see and for the sake of the audience, we see all the lasers in the room, so we know where they can't step. And it's basically just played as almost like a comedy bit where they're doing like sort of funny moves to get around the lasers, and they're sort of doing it in sync. And they limbo at the end to finish it off.
They limbo and Chow Yun falls on his ass and he has to get dragged out before the laser comes down.
Yeah, and it's fine. It's I wasn't as into the back half of that, but all the swinging on the chandelier was entertaining enough.
Yeah, no, I mean the sequence itself it just felt like a fun time. It didn't feel like it was a lot of John Woo's action scenes are very choreographed and very like specifically thought out. This one felt a lot looser. It felt a lot more of like, okay, like we'll do some crazy stuff and we'll make whatever happen. However, as they're exiting, they get shot at, and James does end up taking a bullet.
Yeah, and they stop not too far away. Like they sort of like pull over and like do some sort of first aid and take the bullet out and whatever. And then the bad guys show up anyway, and it's the guy that put them on this mission in the first place who's here with all his men. And this leads to just straight up like car chase, get into the city, and all sorts of chaos. And there is some fun stuff here. At one point, one of the villains' cars goes through a caravan, but it's like a really small caravan, so it's actually a really funny visual of just a caravan kind of just falling apart as the car goes through it. There's some flips and stuff as well. Yeah,
there's also I think two cars simultaneously are like taking a corner too hard, and it's near some stairs, and so they just have cars just tumbling side over side down some stairs as well. Great visuals on that.
Yeah, good stuff there, and it's a lot of this is Chow Yun Fat's in the car, but James is on feet, so he's a bit more vulnerable. And there's actually kind of an interesting shootout here where he's kind of in just this very open area, but there's a lot of tables and chairs that are kind of knocked over from like a little dining area. Yeah. And he's kind of like just rolling about between the tables and stuff, and there's just lots of like I don't even know what you call it, but like, because not squibs per se, but like all the gunshots on the concrete kicking up some like dust or whatever. Right. You can just see all that like around them constantly. I'm like, man, these guys have got horrible aim, because he is dodging like magazines of like machine gun fire.
It's baffling because this back-to-back shots in this. It's like a dock area, so a speedboat is coming up and there's guys firing machine guns. And it's crazy to me when we find out the whole plan of this, like just to move ahead slightly, is that this was all part of a ploy to have this painting stolen again in order to like double its value, because like, oh, it now has this extra story to it. It was stolen for however long. So they were just gonna do that. However, what's crazy to me is the people on the speedboat, he's going to reach for the canister with the painting in it. They shoot the canister away. And I'm like, strike one, you don't do that. That's already a problem. But then you said earlier on, their moral values show when like he goes and protects this kid.
Yeah.
I'm going to counter that with they're shooting at him by running to the kid. That is a bad idea for trying to keep the kid safe.
I think in the logic of the scene it works because these bad guys are just spraying everywhere. So I think it works in the scene. I get the point you're making, but I don't think the scene presents it that way where he's drawing the fire necessarily.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, no, I don't think the scene's presenting it. It seems like a heroic moment, but if I think like just for a moment, I'm like, wait, who are they? Why would they be shooting at the kid? They're aiming at you. You're running towards the kid. Why are you doing that?
But this all ends because Chow Yun Fat like drives his car off the edge onto the speedboat, and it just instantly explodes. And this makes James think he's dead, so he goes to the airport. Because every so often during all this, we've been cutting back to Red Bean, who's just at the airport in front of the little plane that they're going to take, and she's just like pacing around and waiting and going, "Where are they?" So when James shows up on his own and he's got this sad look in his face and like, she's distraught and they get on the plane, it's like, oh, and I was thinking at this point, I mean, I don't really believe he's dead because like, like it felt like he could have just, jumped out of the car at the last second or whatever. I don't know, whatever the reason is. And I'm like, where are we going with this? Like, I'm expecting him to pop back up. And I was surprised that we skip ahead 2 years later. We're in Hong Kong. Now James and Red Bean are a couple. She's got an engagement ring on, so they are fully into it. And the little montage here of like showing the relationship is particularly telling because she sometimes is seeing Chow Yun Fat in her head as she's with James, and I'm like, this is messed up at all sorts of levels.
Yep, and he's also still continuing as a thief. Like we see safe cracking and stealing paintings and stuff like that.
But then, out of nowhere, Chow Yun Fat returns. in a wheelchair. He lost the use of his legs in the explosion. Allegedly. We're in spoilers, I can say it.
Don't spoil it. That's the best bit.
I know it's the best bit, but that's just so good about it. They commit to it for so long, though, and he like it's not like he's like, oh, I'm going to tell the people I'm close to that this is all a charade. No. He has everyone convinced, and it's awkward and it's weird. And part of me thought, oh, is this going to be like really focused on the love triangle where James is going to be like, oh no, he's back, and he like she might want to go back with him, especially if she feels guilty now that he's in a wheelchair. Maybe like he's got too much sympathy now, and I'm going to have to. But it never becomes that. It never does that, which is good for the record.
This movie could have gone into a deep character study of James, where it's like he feels guilty that he died to saving James. Like that was the whole thing of taking out the boat so he would stop getting shot at. He feels guilty over the fact that like he's taken this girl that obviously had interest in him and doesn't want him back because of that. There's so many different things that could have gone on. And what they decide to focus on is, cool, you're back. Like it's none of the other stuff is examined at all.
I mean, there's a little period when he first shows up where they're a little awkward with each other, and then he also like when Red Bean finds out is because James doesn't tell her, right? Nah. It's the dad character who brings it up, and she's like, what? So she goes to see him, and there is like a little bit, sit in my lap and I'll ride you around the apartment kind of moment, and it's like, oh, it seems like he's kind of flirting, but like that's kind of it. Like that's the whole like after that point. No, that said though, the best part of this section is Chow, in fact, goes to the father, the crime father, right? He goes to him outside of his big building. He's very successful as a crime boss now. He's got a fancy suit. He's basically right out of A Better Tomorrow at this point. He is like, oh, father, I've I'm in the wheelchair. I tried to do everything for you, blah blah. But now I'm in this position. Could you financially support me? Because I'm I can't do this. And the father decides to, I guess, test that this is true, that he's in a wheelchair, by kicking him down the stairs that they happen to be at the top of. So we see Chow Yun-fat just rolling downstairs before the Godfather character, who was kind of watching from the distance, sort of with a keen eye, being like, oh, what's going on here? He comes running in and he's like threatening to arrest and the father just like tosses a wad of cash at him and goes, buy him a new chair, and just leaves.
Yeah. I don't think that was a test, because so much of the old like flashback stuff was showing how much he detests like weakness and how much he doesn't like, and the fact that he's just like, oh, I'm of no use to you anymore, Dad, but I'm hoping that my previous money I've made you, like, do I have a 401k? Can I tap into that? And that's the point where the father's like, well, you're no good to me. Yeet.
I mean, either way, if you want to show me, because at this point, like, he wasn't likable in the flashbacks, but if you want to establish that he is the villain of the movie, this is the moment you do. You're like, this worked. I was, okay, he's the bad guy now, especially since they have the Italian guy show up to sell the patent to him, and he has his men kill him. So the Italian guy that set him up in the job he's out of the picture now. He's gone. He's dead.
Yeah, no, and like we get the bit with the him with Chow Yun-fat going to the father, and then we get a bit where I guess the kids, the other two, James and Red Bean, they go to visit him, and he's like, oh, hey, by the way, I want you to steal a painting, and he just leads them into the back room and shows them the cursed painting, the one that Chow Yun-fat died for, and he's like, yeah, this was all part of my plan to like quadruple the value. Like, whatever, who cares? And obviously Red Bean's upset by this because she still thinks Chow Yun-fat died for this, but then very quickly it's revealed to like, oh yeah, no, he's just paralyzed, whatever. Yeah,
so and she goes to see him, and then, and from here, like, basically the father wants James to steal the painting again, right, from the archive. It's going to be at an auction, it's going to be in the vault, all that stuff, and Chow Yun-fat, despite the fact that he's in a wheelchair, says that he's not, he has to look out for him because he'll get into trouble. He got into trouble last time he tried to do one of these big heists on his own. He's going to look out for him anyway. And that manifests, and I do actually really like this scene where James goes to the auction house when the auctions are happening, and he's there to case the joint out, but they won't let him in this part of the back of the room. There's guards and stuff. Hey, this part's like not top secret, but you have to have an invitation and a badge to get in, so you're not allowed in. And there's an auction happening, and the father is in the auction room. He's bidding on this old antique horse thing. It's like a
a camel, maybe, I don't know.
But it's it's a porcelain thingamajig, and it's it's like whatever. And Chow Yun-fat reveals that he's in the room too when he starts also bidding on it. And effectively, all he is doing is driving up the price. And he wheels up next to father and just starts putting his hand up after every bid that his father does. And to the point where it's like, because it starts off at like 1 million. And it's like 1.1, 1.2. And he gets
every
like,
time it goes up by 100K.
Yeah. And the father's like, stop this right now. You're costing me money every time you put your hand up. And the funniest part is, though, is that at the end of it, when he finally gives up and smiles, he goes, oh, well, that's me. There you go. You won. As soon as they hand this thing over to the father, Chow Yun-fat just knocks it out of his hand and it smashes all over the floor.
I also love his response to it is like not even trying to feign anything. I think he literally says like, I did it on purpose. Like he's just like, yep, that's me. That's what I do.
Yeah, that was funny. And this is kind of like, at this point on, like, well, they take him out to the stairwell and beat him up a bit. Him and his goons.
Yeah, and then the auctioneer who's like doing all the stuff, he's bidding up the price. He's just like, oh, this fantastic piece. Like, oh, who wants this? He's selling it for so much. And then as soon as you get pushed on the ground and like he gets dragged away, the auctioneer turns to his guys and is just like, can we get someone to dust up that worthless ceramic now? Like, it's completely useless.
Yeah, he gets beat up, and it's like, okay, he now, like, the father now hates Chow Yun-fat's character because Chow Yun-fat's kind of done this to him. But this also served as a distraction because when all the guards ran up to sort of deal with this situation, it let James sneak in the other area, and he steals a badge. He starts a little fire to make everyone so he can see what keys are used for the vault and what the codes might be and whatever else he's doing. So
yeah, all the security stuff is casing it.
So it all makes some sense, and it's I like that James didn't ask Chow Yun-fat to come and help him. He just kind of naturally did and gave him an opportunity. And I think he realized that he was giving him an opportunity during the process as well. He realized that he was getting help from an old friend. So
absolutely,
that's good building. And from there there's some different elements to set up. There's a whole, this is a little bit later, but there's the whole like we have to get the key off the guy who like has the keys for the vault, and there's a whole dance. This is like the most Red Bean ever gets to do in the movie. She gets this whole dance thing where she has to dance with the guy and get the keys out of his pocket, and it's fine. This is, without it being a gunfight, this is the most of that sort of choreographed idea that John Woo has. The idea of going through and making this a very clear pattern, and you understand exactly what we're doing. We're checking the guy's pockets. Once she gets the key, they switch off dancers so that James can slide it into his pocket. They switch off again so he can get off the dance floor and like make a copy of it with the little foam pad. Yeah, the mold.
And then they slip it back in before the guy can realize that it's gone. And it's very well done. It's a very well paced scene, but it is just, let's make a key. That's all it's there for.
Yeah, I mean, it works well, and you see Chow Yun-fat shows his dancing skills in a wheelchair because he's basically just completely back at one point and just wheeling on the floor back first, and it's like, okay, whatever.
Dude, my wife works in a little bit of nursing stuff, and I've happened to been to her work and like have been in a wheelchair just messing around. The fact that he like center of balance wise, and obviously this was done with a wire, center of balance wise, you can only go like maybe 45 degrees on the wheel. He goes like 85 and then whips back up, and I'm like, damn, that's some talent.
Yeah, he's basically doing the sort of tricks that someone on like a BMX would do, where they're doing like weird kind of like balancing acts and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm just imagining, like, what stuntman or like specialist did you get in to pull off some of these moves, because they're kind of wild.
And also, I mean, obviously there's wire work for some of it, but some of it, like, you see his face. It is him doing this.
So yeah, I mean, amusing for what it is, and there's some scenes of them like setting up. And we were talking about earlier how they're kind of like planning things together now, and like the Godfather's like, hey, you guys better not be stealing. They also make a birthday cake for Chow Yun-fat, and because he pranked with her with a cake earlier, they've got something set up here where there's a spring underneath it so that it pops up and pies him in the face, basically.
Look, maybe this was a different time, but like, I've learned, never put your face directly over a cake. There's nothing good can ever come out of that.
Yeah, so, I mean, honestly, I don't know if there's much more I want to talk about before the actual heist. Is there anything big?
No, I mean, there's nothing else that's really in the sequence. We told a little bit out of order, but for the most part, it just launches into, okay, heist time, where we've got Chow Yun-fat, who's out in the van, acting as the man in the chair, like helping disable security systems or whatever. And then James is the one who's inside actually doing the hard work.
And I did like his like diving around and sliding on the floor and like all these little slick moves, because like well, I may not have been feeling the entire story at all points. Like, once it got into the heist itself, I'm like, oh, I'm enjoying kind of the sneaking about, and I'm enjoying the action that pops up once it gets going.
I enjoyed the sneaking about, and I can't remember if it was this sequence or if there's like a later period where he's sneaking around, but there's a period where he's sneaking. Like, he's making sure of like, okay, I'm going to trip these guards on some like pellets or whatever, so then I could dive across this hallway with nobody seeing me. And like, they go through all the effort, and then he just does like a flashbang and starts punching people out anyway. I'm like, what happened to the stealth, man?
He home alones them, yes.
Yeah.
I guess at a certain point he knew he'd have to take them out, so he did. Not kill them, of course, just incapacitate. But
Right.
there's a whole thing though where like the Godfather shows up at the van. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing out here?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm doing like a radio thing for charity." Blah blah blah. And he has the Godfather kind of like fill in and like, "Hey, you do some of that." But the Godfather mentions, "Oh, I hope James isn't there stealing anything, because the security system in there works that once something's been stolen, it just automatically locks the vault and he'd be locked inside." So you've got Chow Yun-fat going in the wheelchair with explosives, getting ready to help him get out the vault and try and like blow a hole in the door and whatever. And once they're on their way out, there's actually a really cool shot where like a bunch of criminals, like probably working for their dad character, are standing in the dark with their guns, and there's like a moment where they look down the hall and they're like, "Do you see them? Yeah, I see them. Are they real? Are they ghosts? What's happening here?" Mm-hmm. But it leads to kind of a fun action scene where, because Chow Yun-fat's in the wheelchair, there's a lot of like, it's almost like they wanted like a wrench to make it like, okay, what's something we have to work around where we can do a bunch of cool things. And it's like, oh, we can have him spin in the chair and like get into cover in a different way, or James will have to push him a certain way to get him out one. And there's some fun stuff here where maybe the highlight is when Chow Yun-fat throws like a block of C4 at a guy's head, and then the guy runs away around the corner and he hits the trigger and you just see the explosion coming from around the corner. So that's a fun comical bit. Like, I'm into it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I do just want to go back for a moment to
David has muted himself. I cannot. Oh, you're back now.
I literally didn't click anything.
I didn't hear anything there for like a good sentence until I.
No, you're good. You're good. I mean, it's going to be weird because you use my recorded audio, which means I'm totally going to be speaking. But anyway.
Yeah, good point.
When it comes to this sequence, the one bit that I want to hop back on is the James being stuck in the vault sequence, because it's a Looney Tunes moment. Like, it's 100% just straight up a Looney Tunes moment where like he rolls in, he plants the C4 and it's like way more C4 than he could ever possibly need. Like, he's about to blow apart this entire building, and then he pushes the button and some other random ass hole just explodes out of the wall for no explainable reason.
Yep.
And he goes to check on the vault, sees that it didn't explode, doesn't even register that there's another hole in the wall. And then when James finally comes through, he offers up the key, and Chow Yun-fat's like, "Oh, thanks." And he goes to unlock the vault anyway. I don't know. I got a kick out of that whole sequence. I think it was like, well done.
I liked it too. Yeah, because there's that bit of like, he's so focused on what he's doing that the person he's trying to help get out is the one handing him the thing to let him get through the door.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good moment.
So yeah, it's fun, and it's, you know, the entire sequence of them getting out of here is fairly inventive because we're back to the action stuff again, and it kind of goes hand in hand with kind of the final section of the movie, which is back at Chow Yun-fat's place, where because they basically, once they've got the patent, they say, "Hey, we'll sell it to you, you prick, for 30 million, right?" You know, and he's like, "How dare you do this to me? I raised you, blah blah blah," and obviously he comes in and it's a whole thing. There's a bit of a standoff. And they swap like the canister with the painting and like a suitcase of money. And I thought, are neither of you going to check these things before you like swap things over? It feels a bit risky. And sure enough, the money's like, it's like one layer of money and then just paper underneath. And it's like, you son of a bitch. And immediately,
the moment he sees it, the father pulls out a gun and shoots Chow Yun-fat in the legs. And I'm like, that's like the worst place you could have shot him. He doesn't feel anything.
Well, again, I think he's like still skeptical that this is true. So he's testing it again, and then he shoots him in the chest a couple times, and he sort of, you know, he goes reeling back a bit, and James is like, "No, what have you done?" And he kind of ducks out of the way, and then one of the top 10 moments in cinematic history happens, which is Chow Yun-fat's head snaps up. He's clearly still alive, which is not that surprising. He might be wearing a bulletproof vest, which he is, and that's completely fine. He leaps up onto the top of the chair. The two legs at the front were wooden legs. He's been disguising his legs in this chair the entire time, and he fly kicks through the air and kicks father in the face and starts doing a bunch of kung fu. And I started cackling with the balls of doing this. I was cackling of laughter at the absurdity of this moment.
Oh god, no! It'd be one thing, like to have this shot, and then his head snaps up, he looks back up, and then he just like slowly gets out of the chair, and it's just like, I can still walk. But instead, to have him go to an immediate flying drill kick through the air and kicking his father in the face, that's the extra little cherry on top. That's what really sells the moment.
And he's doing all the noises, all the kung fu noises.
Yeah.
He's doing the whole thing. He's doing spin kicks. It's like a whole big bombastic moment. I'm like, what a twist. I just got Shyamalan. What a twist.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I do want to point out, I guess, when he was pushed down the stairs, he fell out of his chair. So clearly at that point,
it was just his, it was just his legs.
Yeah, it was just his legs. So maybe this was even just for this one time. He's just like, I bet my dad's going to try something. I'm going to swap in the fake leg chair.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe he got the wooden legs after that moment in the stairs because he realized, oh, I'm going to need something maybe a bit more, like, because I had to like really pretend that I couldn't move my legs when I was falling, because you'd react, you'd try and stop yourself from falling, right? So he had to really try not to do that. He's like, oh yeah, you know what, I'll have some fake legs at the front just so that I don't have to, Anyway, this all breaks out into a lot of bad guys working for the dad, and they've got like the main characters have put the painting he wants, or at least it's not actually the real one, but it looks like the real painting up on the wall, but it's electrified, so when one of the henchmen goes to grab it, he gets electrocuted. And we get just a bunch of action here. There's stuff where
there's so many Looney Tunes-esque, like crazy-ass things
diving in and out of the way. James is like jumping up out of the ceiling at one point. Some guy, well, at first I was going to crack a joke about some guy thinking he was Gambit, but then he also started blowing fireballs out of his sleeves, and I went, oh, so he's just a magician. No. He's a gangster magician.
Yeah, can we please pause on that for a moment? Like, this is the character that in any other John Woo movie, any other like action movie, you get this guy in Act 1 as like the top tier guy that is like, you beat him and then you beat the final boss. You beat the father character. This guy just shows up. Everyone else has guns. Everyone else got the memo. And he's like, nope, I have really sharp playing cards and some fireballs I can throw. And I'm like, my God. And the worst part is he's a threat. Like, out of everyone else who's just missing shots like crazy, he's the only one who they gotta like sit down for a moment and be like, how do we beat this guy who's throwing playing cards?
Yeah, ultimately he is defeated because Chow Yun-fat, I mean, he tries it at first to just drink a little bit of booze and spit it at him when he throws a fireball, but it doesn't, it's not enough. But then he kind of like does a bigger go of it, which sets the guy on fire, and he's like rummaging around.
He drinks some vodka, does the spurt, it doesn't do much. He then like jumps ahead too quick. The guy doesn't do a fireball as soon as he would have thought, so he wastes the rest of the vodka. Then he drinks something from under the sink that is effectively like a deadly chemical, and he's like, oh God, I'm going to die, I need to throw this thing up. And they do this whole long like sequence before finally the guy throws a fireball at the same time that he vomits, and boom, he's caught on fire.
Yeah,
it's absolute insanity.
Yeah, I mean, I was having a fun time for this last like 10 minutes of all this fighting. I was enjoying myself. It was silly. The logic was weird and all that, but it was working.
Right, but no, that's the thing. The logic's weird, but it's like self-consistently weird. Like they never do a thing that's like doesn't make sense within the movie. The one that stood out to me was James very early on as they're swarming into the apartment, all the bad guys. He shakes up 2 Coke cans, puts them in the microwave, and then puts a basketball in front of the microwave. And it explodes, and one of the guys gets hit with the basketball, a flaming basketball at this point, and just flies out the window.
There's that. I also just kind of like them using different things around the house. At one point, Chow Yun-fat gets trapped because there's fire around him, and he grabs a skateboard and wheels out of it on the skateboard on his belly. I thought that was fun. He also, I didn't like this one as much, to be fair, but he pulls like I think it's like a big fishing rod, and he starts like sort of like wiggling it around at one of the bad guys, and it becomes this comedy bit where the bad guys try to dodge it and like weird classical music starts playing as he's like, and I'm like, all right, calm down.
Well, yeah, and then he keeps on, the guy, like, he has to move his head in a circle to dodge it, and then eventually Chow Yun-fat just stops moving, and he's like still moving his head in a circle. He's like, all right, well, we're done with this, and he just bops him in the face. There was one weird thing with the magician guy, and maybe this is a translation thing. Maybe this is something that's too dated. I don't know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So Gambit here, magician guy's throwing the playing cards, and Chow Yun-fat, they do a whole show of him like,
he catches them. He's like,
he gets an ace and a king, and he's like, dealer wins, and he catches some more, and eventually he catches like 10 aces in both hands, and he says, that's a lot of aces. You must have AIDS.
I don't know what that means.
And I Googled aces and AIDS relationship. That's on my search. I got nothing. I have no idea what this means.
It can't be what we think of as AIDS, right? It can't be that.
But it's all in caps, like the whole thing. It's AIDS, all in caps. Like, that's what gets me.
But what does that have to do with this?
I have no idea. It has to be some sort of translational thing, but like I just don't get it. Oh god, that was the moment where I'm like, okay, what? I've been okay with the Looney Tunes stuff, but this has just crossed into something truly questionable.
It's just so random. It's like saying, oh, you ate a lot of cheesecake, you must have AIDS, and then just walking out of the room. Like,
I'm pretty sure that you could say, you just blanked, you must have AIDS.
Yeah.
Like anything would just be that weird.
Well, like the only thing that wouldn't be weird if it was like, oh, you've got a positive test result back, you must have AIDS. That's the one that would make sense.
Yeah. Not here. Oh, God.
Okay. Anyway,
but yeah, the end of the fight is pretty much all the goons are taken out. A couple of the last ones are electrocuted by trying to get the painting down again. But the father has realized, oh, the electrocution thing is shorted out. I can now just go up and grab my painting. And he stands up on Chow Yun-fat's wheelchair as both James and Chow Yun-fat come back in.
Yeah, and they shoot away the wheelchair, so he falls spectacularly and lands on his knees, which I like. It's very simple, but it felt painful when he landed. I was, oh god,
they're broken. He's not good.
That must have hurt, and he's also an older man. I mean, it would probably break anyone's legs, but especially like an older guy, because like your knees get worse as you age. And I'm like, oh nah, that must have hurt.
Yep.
But the Godfather shows up and he's like, I'm arresting you, my boy's here, let me in on what you were up to, blah, blah. And he's like, hey, you two, I can't really just let you leave. You have been stealing stuff, but I'm going to close my eyes. And they kind of walk away, but he kind of waits a long time to the point where the father, who's like, sitting there handcuffed, and like, they've already left you, idiot, just come and arrest me.
Yeah. I also like the little fourth wall break where as he comes in, he's like, in all the movies, the good guy arrests the bad guy at the end. The same is true for this movie. Click.
Yes.
Like he's just straight up says like, yep, this is a movie. Why not?
Which was a bit weird because like nothing else about the movie was that meta. So that line really stuck out on its own, but hey, whatever. No.
Oh, also they set on fire the duplicate painting, and I don't think they ever let the father know that it's fake.
He is crying his eyes out because this painting is on fire. But hey.
Yep.
Which they do with the flaming bow and arrow, actually, so even that felt a bit silly to an extent.
Oh, I almost forgot. Chow Yun-fat has a parrot, and they just, it's there for the sake of like it can repeat words, and it's there for like wooing Red Bean earlier on. But during the fight scene, James comes in and he like shoos the parrot away, and for a moment I like blinked and I didn't realize it was a parrot. I thought for a second he brought in a single dove onto this shoot as it was flying around, and I'm like, did he do it?
No, is the answer to that.
No,
but
he did not.
They go meet up with the Red Bean, who's waiting at the docks next to a boat, and like trying to find. And this is I was getting ready to complain here because James walks around first and says hello, blah blah, and then Chow Yun-fat she looks upset because it's almost like repeating the moment from earlier where he showed up on his own after a mission, and then she's like, oh god, something happened to him, and she sees Chow Yun-fat, and I was like, oh, she's going to be like gobsmacked that he's walking, and she sees him. and thinks, oh, good, he's okay, and she's happy. I'm like, wait, is she not reacting to the fact that he's walking? But then he gets closer, and she finally reacts to it, and I went, wait, could you not tell him? He was standing up when you first saw him. Like, his head was up here. What? Like, what are you doing, woman? He's clearly walking.
Maybe he was on crutches or something. He went through some physical therapy. I don't know.
But yeah, she gets annoyed that he lied to her, which, you know, I could have done with more of that. I think more of her, like, you know, giving him shit and, like, you know, playfully beating him up because he was lying would have been fun. But he's basically like, hey, you two go off to America and start your lives. I'm going to go solo because I'm going to be a free bird, blah, blah. And they're like, no, we promised we'd always be together. You're coming with us. You said you'd be the godfather to our kids, blah, 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 blah. And he's still kind of saying no, but as soon as the boat's about to start leaving, he runs around and starts running after them. And it's like, oh, he's going with them, which leads to this little epilogue section that takes place a few years later when they have kids. And he's like, it's like a bunch of comedy cartoon hijinks where he's like mistaking what he's doing with the, like, one of their babies, where he's like throwing the baby by accident instead of the other thing he was throwing, or he's like
he's distracted by sports games as he's acting as their godfather, which I think is just glorified babysitter in this case.
Yeah, and I'm like, so you're living with, so they're a couple and you're just this third wheel living with them who looks after the kids. And this is such a, like, this part makes no sense from a real world logic point of view. I'm like, like, are you not going to find your own wife at some point, or got your own thing going on? You're just happy to be the third wheel.
He was willing to take 2 years out of his life not seeing them just for the sake of a sick practical joke. Like, yeah, he'll do this. Why not?
All right. But yeah, the movie literally rolls credits on the freeze frame of James and Red being looking at concerned over where he is because there's hijinks happening. Like, oh
he
no,
just tossed
another
a
accident.
baby into like a playhouse. Like, they're like, oh my God.
Freeze frame, credits roll.
I'm sure you didn't go, but there is one more shot at the end of the credits.
Oh,
which
really?
It's just more of the same. It's just him sitting on the couch and he's like watching sports and he shoves a bottle in like a baby's eye. Like the little thing just like hits the face and he's just like, oh, sorry.
And he's got like an apron and a chef's hat on, so he's kind of like the cook as well, I guess.
It's a weird ending. Look, if you want to take Chow Yun-fat and you want to put him outside of the rule of cool area and just make him like the butt monkey, you did it. Congratulations.
I mean, it just didn't feel like anything in the rest of the movie set up any of the stuff that he's doing at the end. It's just such a random, weird, tacked on little comedy bit. But whatever. Happy ending. They're all happy together. There we go. All right. That's Once a Thief.
Yep.
All right, David, what are you rating Once a Thief out of 10?
You know, as we were talking about it, as we went through the ratings rundown, I feel pretty solid in my choice here, and that is just a very flat 7. I don't think it's budging out of that. It's got qualities I like, which keeps it out of the 6 range, but overall, it's, I think, the most disappointing John Woo film this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's better than Hero Shed No Tears, so I can't agree with that statement. But
I mean, you gave it a 6.5, so you can still agree with the 7.
I think I'm inclined to. Honestly, I think 7 sounds right for me. I think it's good but flawed, but it has enough things in it that are worth seeing that I still kind of recommend it. You know, maybe not as I wouldn't say watch it first or second or third, but if you're going through the John Woo movies, absolutely watch it because if nothing else, there's that one moment near the end that is like an all timer. So yeah, I mean, I'm thinking 7. I was always pretty much thinking 7 out of 10. Honestly, I don't think. I think I felt that early on, and then maybe it started to waver a little lower to 6.5, and then it won me back. You know, as it was going into all the fun stuff at the end. So, you know, but it's still good though. I mean, 7's still a good movie, and if this is kind of the floor, I wouldn't say. And admittedly, I don't think it is the floor. I think Hero Shed No Tears was a little bit worse. But
that's fair. But does it make the cut? Yeah, this is a tough one.
I think we should say cutting it close.
Okay.
It's kind of on the periphery of cutting it close and making the cut, but I think that making the cut should feel a little bit prestigious, and that means being a little harsher sometimes with this 7.
That's fair. I mean, we both agreed Here Shed No Tears was cutting it close, and I said this was worse than that. So I'm happily putting it in the cutting it close section. But yeah, I think that this is one of those ones where it's still worth a watch, but you should probably know what you're getting into before you sit down to watch it.
It's a solid, good movie, but it's very much in the completion kind of. What I mean by that is that, like, it's not, if you're really going to watch 2 or 3 John Woo movies, I'm never picking this one. But if you're buying a box set or a bundle of John Woo movies and this is in there, it's a solid addition to add value to the set. So, there you go. That's Once a Thief, which does mean that we have one more John Woo episode for this season. Our finale next week will be arguably his most famous movie that he made before he started making US movies, and even arguably his most famous movie regardless, is Hard Boiled. That is what we're going to be looking at next week. Chow Yun-fat, once again, in the lead role. So we'll see how that pans out next week. But
I'm interested to see a movie based around nothing but eggs. So over on Patreon,
Patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, you can support Collector's Cut as well as the other shows we do, like the sci-fi podcast that me and David also do called The Atomic Cinema Experiment. Check out that. In fact, this same very week, Masters of the Universe, the new release, was reviewed. So check out that one.
We filmed, obviously, we try to get a little bit of a backlog here. We film these things a little bit in advance. And I cannot express my disdain over the fact that finding out that this movie is getting okay ratings. Like, I hate that. I hate the idea that, like, this might be okay.
It's sitting at 75% on Rotten Tomatoes at the time of recording this. So
damn it. I have so much righteous fury I want to unleash on this movie.
Patreon, you can get access to the ratings rundown segments, you can get access to Extra Reels, which is a monthly show that me and David do where we review some of the worst movies ever made. Coming next up is Catwoman, starring Halle Berry, so look forward to that. But mainly you're helping make sure all the shows keep coming, so thank you to everyone who already does support us on there. YouTube membership's an alternative as well to get access to that bonus content and support us that method. But that is the show, and we'll see you next time. So keep watching movies, and if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.